From ancient landscapes to our earliest ancestors, you've just experienced a brief history of human evolution. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened and what it means for us today. In the vast theater of cosmic time, our story began about 6 to 7 million years ago in the heart of Africa. That's when our lineage split from the common ancestor we share with chimpanzees and bonobos. Imagine Africa as a bustling city. Our chimpanzee cousins stayed in the city center, while we started our journey on the outskirts. But instead of skyscrapers, our early landscape was filled with sprawling savannas and dense forests. Instead of cars, there were herds of wandering animals and the distant rumble of volcanoes. And instead of iPhones, we had 2 hands to use for climbing trees. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. For millions of years, we were neither fish nor fowl, not yet fully terrestrial, nor truly arboreal. Sapiens chidensis, which means philosophy of the ape man in Greek, is one of the oldest known hominin genera. This 7 to 6 million year old species was discovered in Chad in 2001 and represents a significant step towards understanding our origins. Despite its small brain size, its skull suggests a reduction in canine teeth and a flatter face, hints of adaptations that would come to define our species. Though its ape-like appearance may not have been particularly dashing, it made a lasting impression in the scientific community as Tumai, the hope of the ape man. This translates to man of hope in French. Tumai is a ray of hope in the search for human origins, symbolizing a step closer to unraveling the mysteries of our past. Another hopeful glimmer came with the discovery of Oran tuganensis, named for the Oran forest where it was found in Kenya. This species from around 6 million years ago also showcases features like a thigh bone that suggests upright walking. Finally, in 1994, a new arrival made the scene, the world-famous Lucy. She turned out to be Australopithecus afarensis, a species that roamed Africa between 4.2 and 3 million years ago. Standing no taller than your average human male of today, she had a brain almost identical to that of a chimpanzee. Lucy wasn't just any ordinary great ape, though. Her defining feature was her pelvis, perfectly suited for walking upright. And to prove it, the Laetoli footprints in Tanzania show a clear set of footprints left behind by a group of early hominins, including an individual who walked like Lucy. The idea of these primates standing up straight might seem odd, but it was actually a clever move. Walking upright freed our hands, setting the stage for tool use in everything that came after. The first tools were simple rocks used as hammers, but they quickly became more sophisticated, allowing our ancestors to cut meat, crack open hard nuts, and compete with predators for food. With better nutrition, the hominin brain began to grow, laying the foundation for the intellectual revolution that would transform the world forever. As the continent shifted, so did we. By 3 million years ago, we found ourselves in the genus Homo. Unlike our Australopithecine cousins, we had much larger brains and smaller faces and teeth. This change in appearance happened because we spent less time climbing trees and more time on the ground. If you think this sounds like a significant shift, that's because it was. We were no longer just apes that walked upright. We were becoming uniquely human. Homo habilis, meaning handyman, was among the first members of our genus. These early humans had brains roughly twice the size of those of chimpanzees, and were known for crafting the first rudimentary stone tools called Oldowan tools. They lived between 2.8 and 1.6 million years ago, sharing the earth with other hominid species such as Homo rudolfensis. Despite their small stature, these pioneering humans laid the groundwork for future advancements, marking a pivotal moment in our evolutionary journey. Around 1.9 million years ago, Homo erectus entered the scene. With larger brain, modern body shape, longer legs, and shorter arms, Homo erectus stood about 5 feet tall. These adaptable humans mastered the use of fire, crafted more advanced tools called Acheulean tools, and ventured beyond Africa, establishing settlements in Georgia, China, and Indonesia. This journey marked the first time our ancestors left their homeland. It was a testament to their curiosity and adaptability, paving the way for future migrations and the eventual spread of modern humans across the globe. But our story doesn't end here. It's merely a detour on a grander journey that has taken millions of years to unfold. As the continents shifted and the climate changed, new hominin species arose. Australopithecus africanus, discovered in South Africa, is notable for its more human-like teeth and slightly larger brain compared to Afarensis. This species existed between 3 and 2 million years ago and provided further insights into the complexities of early hominin evolution. Then there were the enigmatic Homo floresiensis and Homo luzonensis, tiny hominins who lived in isolation on islands in Southeast Asia. Their existence highlights the diversity of human evolution and the remarkable adaptations that arise in different environments. Meanwhile, back in Africa, Homo heidelbergensis emerged, a potential ancestor of both Neanderthals and us. These robust humans roamed Europe and West Asia from about 600,000 to 200,000 years ago. They were skilled hunters and may have been the first to bury their dead. And then came Homo neanderthalensis, or Neanderthals, stocky humans perfectly adapted for the cold conditions of Europe and West Asia. They thrived from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, demonstrating intelligence by creating cave paintings and burying their dead. Despite their fierce reputation, they went extinct, possibly due to competition for resources with modern humans. In Asia, another mysterious group, the Denisovans, flourished. Known mainly through their DNA, they interbred with both Neanderthals and modern humans. Their genes persist in some Asian and Pacific Islander populations. All the while, Homo sapiens, or modern humans, were evolving in Africa. By 300,000 years ago, our lineage had emerged, characterized by a round skull, prominent chin, and high forehead. Fossil evidence suggests that this distinct morphology emerged in Africa around 300,000 years ago, and these humans gradually spread across the globe. By 100,000 to 70,000 years ago, they migrated out of Africa, reaching Australia by 50,000 years ago, Europe by 45,000 years ago, and finally the Americas around 15 to 20,000 years ago. However, we didn't just replace other human species. Archaeological evidence reveals that we interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans. Today, non-Africans carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, and some populations possess Denisovan genes. This mixing of genes reflects our complex history and the interconnectedness of our ancient past. What makes us humans? It's not just our physical traits or ancestral journey. It's the essence of our being, our ability to innovate and adapt, to dream and create. Our species' journey is marked by a relentless drive to explore, to understand, and to create. As you continue to explore the vast canvas of human history, remember that each brushstroke, each fossil, each strand of ancient DNA tells the story of a remarkable journey. Your story, my friends, is written in the stars. You are the legacy of billions of years of cosmic evolution, a testament to the relentless march of time and the extraordinary power of adaptation. You are the culmination of a saga that began with the Big Bang, a saga that continues to unfold with every beat of your heart, with every thought that crosses your mind. You are the author of this story, and your journey has just begun. Now, if you want to dive deeper into the wonders of science and technology, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Join us in celebrating the beauty and complexity of our universe. Together, let's continue to explore, to learn, and to dream. After all, the greatest adventures are those we undertake together. So keep looking up. There's always something new to discover. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep dreaming big. The universe has endless wonders waiting to be uncovered. So many questions about our past have been answered. Yet one question still remains. Who are we? Hi everyone, I'm your host. This is Crash Course, and this is our second episode on human evolution. Last time we talked about how our bodies evolved from early hominins in Africa to modern humans all across the world. But that's not the whole story. Our story doesn't end with anatomy and stone tools. So let's talk about how our minds Societies and environments transformed to give rise to art, agriculture, cities, and science. This is the story of human culture and civilization, the next chapter in our evolution. And if you want more stories about ancient times, check out the series in the description below. We're going to start with symbolic thinking in art. When we say Homo sapiens, we often think of ourselves as the smart ones. Compared to our hominin relatives, we are smarter, more adaptable, and more technologically advanced. However, defining what makes us smarter isn't easy. Some say it's making the sharpest stone tools, but other hominins use sophisticated tools too. Some say it's having the biggest brains, but again, other hominins had larger brain size and neuron counts. Instead, researchers focus on the unique capabilities of our kind. One is our ability to think symbolically. Basically, to use abstract thought, identity, and imagination. The earliest evidence of symbolic thinking comes from 100,000 years ago in Africa. There are beads made from shells and pig teeth found at South Africa's Blombos cave and engraved pieces of bone discovered at various sites. These artifacts tell us our ancestors were intentionally creating symbolic items, not just for immediate use, but for personal expression and maybe even belief systems. But we get our best clues from European sites occupied around 40,000 years ago when Homo sapiens began flourishing there. Sites like Chauvet Cave and Lascaux in France show how our species could imagine things beyond the everyday. To understand these sites, we need to know how humans see in the dark. Our eyes are great in daylight thanks to cones that give us color vision, but those cones don't work well in the dark. Instead, at night, we use rods that detect movement and shades of gray. Because we need darkness to use our rods, we can't see colors at night. But some of our hominin relatives, including Neanderthals, had more rods than we do. That means they could see better in the dark, but not colors. Our ancestors adapted by developing more cones, which allows us to see colors in daylight. And then they took advantage of this by painting with natural pigments. They make colors from plants, berries, earth pigments, charcoal, and more. This is why caves were ideal places for art, because they were dark enough to make colors visible. In Blombos cave, ochre was ground into powder and mixed with fat to make paint, then used to decorate a slab of bone. Meanwhile, in France, pigment was carefully applied to cave walls. This required both planning ahead and coordinating with others. So the artistic expression of our ancestors wasn't just an individual pursuit. It was a community endeavor involving imagination, intention, and collaboration. It was a uniquely human moment, but symbolic thinking wasn't just used for art. At the Brie du Marais in France, researchers found figurines carved from mammoth ivory and reindeer antler. Some are abstract shapes, while others resemble animals. Some are simple, while others seem highly detailed. Scholars debate their meaning, but regardless, they show an ability to imagine something new and create it in physical form. Also, flutes made from bird bones and deer femurs suggest that music was taking shape. With all this creativity blooming, some researchers believe that symbolic thinking played a key role in our success. Our imaginations enabled us to plan ahead, organize large groups, invent new technologies, and create complex beliefs and stories. In short, to be fully modern. But here's the thing, we haven't always been modern humans. Most of our species history, we were hunter-gatherers. This way of life meant living in small groups, constantly moving and relying on whatever food we could find. But around 12,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, a region that stretches from eastern Iraq through Syria, Jordan, and into Israel, people began doing something revolutionary. They started farming. For millennia, wild plants had provided people with food, but gathering wild plants was a slow process. Domesticating them meant changing the plant's breeding cycle, keeping the seeds that were easiest to harvest year after year. Domesticated plants would grow faster and provide bigger yields, and they'd be easier to collect. Turns out that plants in the Fertile Crescent were especially well suited for domestication. Wheat, barley, and lentils were among the first crops. Animals were domesticated too: goats, sheep, pigs, and later cows. This provided a source of meat and milk, plus the muscle power to help with farming. farming innovations spread outward from the Fertile Crescent. In China, people domesticated millet and rice. In Africa, they domesticated sorghum and yams. In Mesoamerica, corn, beans, and squash were domesticated. And in the Andes, potatoes and llamas were domesticated. This shift to farming is called the Neolithic Revolution, and it was a huge step in human history. It allowed permanent settlements, food surplus, and population growth. With farming came the need to manage property rights and resources. New social structures and institutions arose, leading to the first cities. The Fertile Crescent became home to Sumer, one of the oldest known civilizations. Sumerians lived in cities like Uruk, where they created the world's first known system of writing cuneiform. It started as pictures stamped into clay tablets, but developed into a more abstract system of wedges and lines. Writing allowed Sumerians to keep track of goods, make deals, and exchange information. It was an essential tool for managing the demands of an agricultural society. Across the world, writing developed independently in several areas. Egyptians along the Nile developed hieroglyphics. Chinese people developed their own system of logograms. And Mesoamerican cultures developed a system using a combination of symbols and phonetic writing. Each system had its own style and function, but they all served the same purpose. They helped people record information and communicate across time and space. In Mesopotamia, the Akkadians, Amorites, Babylonians, and Assyrians all rose to power. They created epic poems, developed laws, and waged war. Ancient Egypt saw the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. They built pyramids and temples and had a centralized state run by pharaohs. The Indus Valley civilization in South Asia had advanced urban planning and sophisticated drainage systems. All around the world, humans were coming together in cities, developing new ways to organize and manage their affairs. Agriculture had made it possible, and with that came monumental architecture, new technologies, and foundations for empires. Let's fast forward from there to 3,000 years ago. People everywhere had been migrating for hundreds of thousands of years. Our species spread from Africa to populate every corner of the planet, but now people were settling down. Hunting and gathering was still common, but people were increasingly growing their own food and raising their own animals. Throughout history, humans migrated for many reasons, following herds, finding new lands, and seeking better lives. As long as humans existed, they were moving. But now, they were also spreading into new territories and adapting to different environments. Pacific Islanders explored vast oceans, guided by the stars and ocean currents. About 15,000 years ago, the Barangel land bridge connecting Siberia and North America emerged during the last ice age. This allowed humans to enter the Americas. Other humans migrated into Europe and Central Asia across the land bridge that connected the two continents, carrying their languages and cultures with them. The steppe, or grassy plains, were open spaces perfect for animal herding and horseback riding. No surprise, then, that the languages of the steppe are among the first attested in writing. Around 4,000 years ago, steppe nomads began moving east and west, spreading Indo-European languages across Eurasia. Languages are hard to study because they leave little physical evidence behind. But archaeologists have been able to trace the roots of many modern languages to the ancient steppe. These migrations tell us something important about human nature. Wherever humans went, we adapted to the environment and created new cultures and technologies to suit our needs. About 2,000 years ago, humans were spreading seeds across the Mediterranean. Olive pits were taken to Greece, acorns to Italy, figs to Spain, and grapes to France. People continued migrating throughout history, and we're still migrating today. But now we have cars, planes, and cruise ships to get around. Whenever humans moved to a new place, we carried culture, language, tools, and genes with us. This mixing and blending have given us the rich cultural and genetic diversity we see today. And throughout this history, evolution kept happening. Maybe evolution feels like something in the distant past that led to us becoming modern humans. But in fact, evolution continues to shape who we are. Until the Industrial Revolution, most of our evolutionary changes happened in small increments over long periods of time. But since then, technological advancements have accelerated the pace of change in our world and in our genes. For example, the ability to digest milk as adults evolved in herding populations. People who could drink milk had an edge when food was scarce because they had another source of nutrition. Today, Tibetans and Andeans have an adaptation that helps them live at high altitudes. They have an enzyme that carries oxygen to their muscles, allowing them to thrive in places where most people would suffocate. And people in regions affected by malaria have evolved some immunity to the disease. As for our brains, they've gotten smaller over time. This might sound bad, but consider that our guts have shrunk too, and that's a good thing. A smaller gut means we needed less food, which meant we could afford to have smaller bodies and smaller brains. Our modern brains are actually larger than our ancestors, but we need less energy to run them. This efficiency means we have more energy to devote to growing big brains and little babies. It's part of why we're more intelligent and more social than our ancestors. Most importantly, our species keeps evolving. Every generation, millions of tiny mutations occur in our DNA. Some are harmful, some are helpful, and most have no effect. But over millions of years, these mutations have added up to major changes, like the evolution of feathers and flight in birds. The same process is happening to us right now. We just don't know what those changes will be yet. Our brains, bodies, and cultures continue to change in response to our environment and our behavior. And the rate of change is only speeding up. As we develop new technologies, they influence the way we live and the way we interact. Smartphones and apps help us find information, connect with others, and navigate the world. But as our relationship with technology grows, it'll likely influence how we think and behave, and that'll affect our evolution too. We're at a unique moment in human history. We've changed the world to fit our needs, but now we're facing consequences like climate change and mass extinction. We've also changed ourselves by altering our diet, our behaviors, and our environments. But despite all the problems we've caused, we've also solved some of the world's biggest mysteries. We put the first satellite into orbit, the first astronauts into space, and the first rover on Mars. We're figuring out how to edit genes and uploading thoughts to the cloud. Everything we've accomplished, everything we are, and everything we'll become is the result of our evolution. From our earliest ancestors in Africa to our current species on every continent. We've changed and adapted in response to our world. Now we're at a place where we can choose how we'll evolve. Our decisions today will determine what humans become tomorrow. So what will we become? Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course, which was filmed at a studio and made in partnership with a digital studio in nature. Do you want to help keep Crash Course free for everyone forever? You can join our community on a crowdfunding platform. This video is part of a series called Human Evolution. To watch the first 2 parts, click here and here. Let's jump back in. It's impossible to predict the future of human evolution with any accuracy. So many variables are at play that any prediction would be pure speculation. However, by examining current trends and extrapolating them into the future, we can arrive at some fascinating possibilities. Let's begin with a simple observation. Evolution is happening right now. It's happening all around you. Whether or not you realize it, the world is changing and we are changing with it. Small adaptations that once conferred a survival advantage, like immunity to malaria, are being replaced by new ones, like resistance to antibiotics and pesticides. Humans have been altering their environment and inadvertently themselves through technology since the dawn of the Stone Age. But as our influence grows, so does the impact we have on our own evolution. And while that might seem like an inevitable byproduct of progress, we're beginning to take control of our evolutionary fate. As I mentioned in my last video, the process of evolution is driven by 4 main forces: mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow. Mutation is a random change in the DNA sequence, and while it's the ultimate source of all genetic variation, it's not the only thing that drives evolution. Natural selection is what most people think of when they hear the word evolution. But it's worth pointing out that it doesn't necessarily result in the survival of the fittest. It simply means that organisms with certain traits are more likely to reproduce and pass those traits on to their offspring. Sometimes a trait makes an organism more fit for its environment, like the ability to digest lactose, which was selected for after humans domesticated cattle. But sometimes a trait is favored because of random chance, like the fact that humans have fewer than 5,000 years ago had a genetic variant that made them resistant to the plague, saving them from almost certain death and allowing them to pass on their genes. And while natural selection still plays a big role in our lives today, it's becoming less important as other forces come to the fore. Since the dawn of civilization, humans have altered their environment and inadvertently themselves through technology. But as our influence grows, so does the impact we have on our own evolution. For example, modern medicine can prevent many of the diseases that used to kill us, meaning that some genes that used to provide a survival advantage no longer do. This is an example of something called genetic drift. As a population evolves, the frequency of certain genes can change by pure chance, not because they confer a survival advantage. Gene flow is the transfer of genetic material from one population to another. And while gene flow tends to make populations more similar, it can also introduce new genetic variants into a population. For example, as humans migrate around the globe, they carry with them their genes, which can introduce new genetic variants into isolated populations. One example is the gene for lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk as an adult. This gene first evolved in a small group of humans about 7,500 years ago in what is now Northern Europe. And since then it has spread to other populations through gene flow as humans migrated and domesticated cattle. But perhaps the most interesting force driving human evolution today is something I haven't mentioned yet. Artificial selection. As I mentioned in my last video, natural selection is simply the process by which organisms with certain traits are more likely to reproduce and pass those traits on to their offspring. But artificial selection is the same process carried out by humans. Humans have been selectively breeding plants and animals for thousands of years, choosing which individuals get to reproduce based on desirable traits. But it wasn't until recently that we developed the ability to do this with our own species. In the 1970s, scientists began to understand the structure of DNA and how genetic information is encoded within our cells. This discovery allowed researchers to identify specific genes responsible for certain traits and manipulate them in ways that were never before possible. One of the first examples of genetic engineering was in 1978, when scientists successfully inserted human insulin genes into bacteria, which then produced large quantities of insulin that could be used to treat diabetes. Since then, genetic engineering has become much easier, thanks to a revolutionary technology called CRISPR-Cas9, which allows scientists to precisely target and modify specific genes. It has the potential to cure genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia by correcting mutations that cause them. But it could also be used to enhance human traits like intelligence, memory, and physical abilities. The ethical implications of using CRISPR-Cas9 to enhance human traits are controversial. Many argue that it's wrong to alter the genetic makeup of future generations for non-medical reasons. Others argue that it's a natural extension of what humans have been doing for thousands of years, selectively breeding plants and animals for desirable traits. The prospect of genetic engineering raises a number of ethical concerns. For example, who will have access to these technologies and who decides which traits are desirable? There is also the risk of unintended consequences as we manipulate one gene. We could inadvertently affect others or create new diseases. These concerns are valid and need to be carefully considered as we move forward. But it's important to remember that genetic engineering isn't the only way that humans are influencing the future of human evolution. As technology advances, humans are increasingly integrating with machines. Prosthetics have come a long way in recent years, and many companies are working on developing fully integrated robotic limbs that can restore movement to quadriplegics. Neural implants, like Elon Musk's Neuralink, aim to link the human brain with artificial intelligence. And augmented reality and wearable tech are blurring the line between biology and data. Imagine a world where everyone has a neural implant that allows them to interact with computers and each other in new ways, where prosthetic limbs are indistinguishable from real ones, and where augmented reality is seamlessly integrated into our everyday lives. This might sound like science fiction, but it's closer to reality than you might think. One of the most exciting developments in prosthetics is the development of robotic limbs that can restore movement to people who have lost the ability to move. For example, a company called Restore Medical has developed a robotic exoskeleton that allows people with spinal cord injuries to walk again. Another company called Bionics is developing a bionic arm that will allow people to control their prosthetic limb with their thoughts. Neural implants are another area of active research. Elon Musk's company Neuralink is developing a device that will allow people with paralysis to control computer cursors with their thoughts. Other companies are developing implants that will restore vision to blind people and hearing to deaf people. But what does all this mean for the future of human evolution? As we become more reliant on technology, the line between biology and machine is becoming increasingly blurred. Some people believe that this is leading to a new form of human, a cyborg. A cyborg is a being with both biological and mechanical parts. And while cyborgs exist today, they are typically people who have had mechanical devices implanted in their bodies to replace damaged organs or limbs. But as technology advances, cyborgs could become more than just people with implants. They could become a new species altogether. Imagine a world where everyone has a neural implant that allows them to interact with computers and each other in new ways, where prosthetic limbs are indistinguishable from real ones, and where augmented reality is seamlessly integrated into our everyday lives. This might sound like science fiction, but it's closer to reality than you might think. Some experts believe that this is the future of human evolution. As technology advances, humans will become more and more integrated with machines, and eventually we will become cyborgs. This may sound like a distant possibility, but it's happening right now. Companies are already developing the technology that will make it possible. But even if we don't become cyborgs, technology is still likely to have a profound impact on the future of human evolution. As we solve problems like poverty and disease, new challenges will arise. And as we face these challenges, new traits will be selected for. For example, as the world becomes more urban, there may be a selection for traits like stress resilience and social cognition. How we adapt to these challenges will determine what the future of human evolution looks like. And that's not the only way that technology is influencing the future of human evolution. As artificial intelligence continues to advance, some experts believe that the next stage in evolution won't be biological at all. What happens if AI surpasses human intelligence? Could machine consciousness evolve? Would synthetic minds be our descendants? This may sound far-fetched, but it's not as crazy as it sounds. AI is advancing faster than many people expect, and we are only beginning to understand the potential implications of this technology. One of the most popular theories about the future of human evolution is the idea of digital immortality. This theory suggests that humans will eventually be able to upload their consciousness into a computer and live forever in a virtual world. While this may sound like science fiction, it is actually a serious topic that is being discussed by some of the brightest minds in the world. For example, Elon Musk believes that digital immortality is possible, and he is working on developing the technology that will make it possible. There are a lot of arguments against digital immortality. For example, some people believe that it's not possible to upload consciousness into a computer, and that digital immortality is nothing more than a fantasy. Others argue that even if it were possible, it wouldn't be ethical to create artificial copies of humans. But these arguments are not universal, and there are many people who believe that digital immortality is not only possible, but inevitable. What do you think? Will humans evolve into cyborgs? Will we achieve digital immortality? Or will we simply die out like so many other species before us? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, the future of human evolution is full of surprises. So there you have it, folks. Those are some of the ways that humans are changing and some of the challenges we will face in the future. It is an exciting time to be alive, and it's up to us to decide what the future of human evolution will look like. Will we embrace genetic engineering and become cyborgs? Or will we focus on solving the problems of today, like climate change and poverty? The choice is ours. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think about the future of human evolution? Do you think we'll become cyborgs? Will we achieve digital immortality? Or will we simply die out like so many other species before us? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.